They say the machines remember everything. The code, the data, the orders. But out here, in the lonely cold above a dying Earth, it's the last man who carries the weight of memory. His name was Victor Hawthorne, 61 years old, a ghost among rusting metal and broken circuits, the last engineer aboard the Iron Wind, an orbital station once built to control the very winds of a planet that forgot how to breathe. The Earth below wasn't the blue world he once knew. It was a cracked wasteland, swirled in dust storms, flickering with faint dying storms. From this forgotten vantage point, Victor could see it all, the slow unraveling of humanity's home. He worked alone. The station's thrusters were silent now. The weather grids it once controlled were long dead. Yet Victor stayed, because some things don't end when the power cuts off. Some memories burn too bright to fade. One night, as he patched wires and wiped grime from the station's cracked screens, a signal blinked to life. A faint beacon, an echo from deep space. It was human. It was real. The Argos, a ship lost 70 years ago. Nobody was supposed to be out there anymore. No ships, no crews, no hope. But the signal insisted. Victor's hands trembled, not from age, but from something else. A call from the past, or maybe a warning from the future. Whatever it was, it shattered the silence he had lived with for decades. He pulled on his worn spacesuit, packed his tools, a wrench, a scanner, an old drone, relics from a better time. No one could help him. There were no protocols left. Only one choice: follow the signal into the dark. The Iron Wind's airlock hissed open. Outside, the endless void waited. Victor floated forward, eyes fixed on the shadow drifting in the distance. The Argos, broken, silent, a tomb frozen in time. But Victor didn't see a lost ship. He saw a beginning. Because some futures don't fade away. They wait for someone who remembers how to bring them back. Victor's breath hissed in his helmet as he approached the Argos, drifting like a ghost in the vast silence of space. The ship was a skeleton, cracked hull plates, broken antennas, the slow dance of decay etched into every surface. Inside, the air was stale, cold, frozen in time. Victor moved carefully, his boots making no sound on the metal floors as he explored the corridors once alive with life and purpose. No signs of a crew, no bodies, just silence. Then, faintly, a voice. A child's voice, looping, fragile like a fading star. "Hello? Can anyone hear me? My name is Elias. I'm still here." Victor stopped. His heart quickened. This wasn't possible. The Argos was lost decades ago. No children, no survivors. He followed the sound deeper into the ship's bowels to a hidden chamber sealed tight with layers of dust and time. Inside, a strange machine hummed. A bioprinter, ancient technology designed to recreate life through memory and data. Elias was not alive. Not really. She was a ghost, a synthetic echo of a child, left behind by a crew desperate to be remembered. Victor's hands trembled as he reached out to the flickering console, his mind racing. "This was a fail-safe," he whispered, "a memory programmed to wait. For me." And just like that, the lonely engineer found himself part of a story that was never meant to be told. The Argos wasn't just a ship. It was a message, a warning. Because somewhere in the echoes of its memory lay a secret. One that could change everything Victor thought he knew about the future. But to unlock it, he would have to face the ghosts of the past and the cold machine waiting to forget. Victor carried the ghost of Elias back aboard the Iron Wind, not as a child, but as a pulse of code. A flicker of life born from memory and machine. She was a whisper, a spark in the station's cold heart. The station, once a titan controlling Earth's winds, now shuddered under years of neglect and silence. But deep in its core, the engines still waited. Vast thrusters powerful enough to shift the dying planet's fragile atmosphere. Victor knew what had to be done. One last mission. One final chance to breathe life back into a world that had given up on itself. Together, man and memory worked through failing circuits and broken systems, piecing together a plan that felt impossibly fragile. "This is more than machines and codes," Victor said, voice rough from years of solitude. "It's hope." Power was scarce, systems overloaded, every second counted. Victor connected the last control lines. His body ached. He was the station's beating heart now. The engines roared to life, flames licking the void outside the observation bay. The earth below stirred, clouds swirling, winds awakening. But the cost was clear. Victor felt the final burn in his chest. The price of restarting the iron wind. "Elia," he said softly, "you were never meant to survive this long. But you gave me a reason to remember." The station's systems hummed with new life as Victor gazed out at a planet reborn, his own legacy etched into the winds that now carried the last hope of humanity. And as silence claimed him, the stars held their breath. For a future forged not just by machines, but by the last engineer who dared to remember. But Victor felt the station tremble beneath his feet. A reminder that time was no longer on his side. Elias' code flickered softly in the control room, a fragile presence amidst the chaos of failing systems and resurrected engines. Outside, Earth's atmosphere began to stabilize, the first real breath of life in decades. Yet the cost was mounting. Every second the engines fired drained the station's core, and Victor's body was growing weaker. The choice was brutal and clear. Keep the station alive and risk the last link to humanity's memory, himself, or sacrifice the iron wind to save what was left of the world. Victor faced the final console, eyes heavy but resolute. "There's no legacy without sacrifice," he whispered. "The wind carries what we leave behind. I'll be the silence that lets the future speak." With a trembling hand, he initiated the shutdown sequence for the station's life support, giving all remaining power to the thrusters. Elias' voice softened, almost human now. "Will you stay with me?" He smiled faintly, a man who had carried too much for too long. "I'll be the memory you need to survive." As the station's lights dimmed, Victor walked to the observation deck one last time. Outside, the Earth's clouds swirled faster, winds picking up strength. He closed his eyes, letting the cold silence of space wash over him, knowing his sacrifice was the seed for tomorrow's storm. Darkness pressed in, but Victor was no longer afraid. The iron wind was fading, its systems silent now, but the world below was waking up. Elias' voice echoed softly through the comms, a ghost no longer, but a promise. "The future remembers, because of you." Outside the observation window, Earth's atmosphere stirred. Swirling clouds, shifting winds, the fragile breath of a planet reborn. Victor's vision blurred, memories flashing, faces long gone, stars he'd crossed, the lives he'd lost. He was the last engineer, but not the last hope. Somewhere in the silence, a new story began, one born from sacrifice, memory, and the iron wind that never died. The station drifted, a silent sentinel in orbit, carrying the legacy of a man who refused to let the future forget. Years had slipped past like drifting stardust. The iron wind, once a battered sentinel orbiting a dying Earth, had become more than a relic. It was legend. A whispered myth shared in the quiet corners of distant space outposts, a story of sacrifice, memory, and a man who refused to let humanity's last breath fade into silence. Down on Earth, the winds stirred anew, slowly knitting the fragile atmosphere back together. Life began to creep out from the shadows of extinction, sparked by the dying breath of a station and the will of one man. But the story was far from over. Far beyond the reach of the solar system, in the cold emptiness between stars, a faint pulse cut through the darkness, a signal unmistakably human. A child's voice, clear and bright in the silence of space, called out like a beacon. "Hello? Can anyone hear me? My name is Elias. I'm still here." Elias. The ghost child Victor had found, not truly alive, but a living memory etched into data, a seed of hope encoded in the echoes of the past. And now, her message traveled across light years, carried by fractured transmissions, waiting for the next soul brave enough to listen. Across distant galaxies, in hidden outposts and drifting colonies, systems flickered as technicians caught the faint call, and in some, old engineers felt a stir of recognition deep in their bones. Victor's legacy wasn't just the rebirth of a dying world, it was the spark that ignited a new chapter for humanity. A chapter where memory and hope became one. Because some stories refuse to die. They ripple through time, echoing beyond stars, beyond loss, beyond the void. They wait for the next listener. And somewhere, out there, the wind was rising again.